They laughed when he said he wanted to fly. "You?" they sneered. "You can't even afford shoes, and you want to touch the sky?" But he didn't respond. He simply smiled, walked away barefoot on the burning ground, and whispered to himself, "They see my feet. I see my wings." This is the story of Ayaan, not a celebrity, not a millionaire, not a man with grand titles, but someone whose fire burned silently in the background. He wasn't born to inspire, yet somehow that's exactly what he became. Ayaan grew up in a forgotten town, the kind you only pass through, never visit. His house was a one-room brick structure with a leaking roof and a flickering bulb that hung like hope. Barely alive, but still there. His father worked as a janitor in a nearby school, and his mother cleaned dishes at neighbors' homes. They had no savings, no legacy, and no family name to fall back on. But they had one thing: dignity. And they wore it like armor. At age 12, Ayaan started working at a mechanic shop after school. Grease and dust became part of his skin. He didn't complain. He couldn't. Complaints were a privilege, and he had none. But he had dreams, raw, unfiltered, impossible dreams. Every day, while wiping engine oil off his hands, Ayaan would look up at the sky. Not in despair, but in curiosity. He would wonder how far a person could go if only they believed hard enough. While others around him got consumed by survival, Ayaan was secretly feeding his soul with something more: purpose. One day, while sweeping the floor of the workshop, he heard something that changed him forever. A customer left the radio on in the car, and the voice of a motivational speaker crackled through the speakers. "You were not born to live the same day 70 times and call it a life." Ayaan froze. Those words struck him like lightning. In that moment, something shifted inside him. He realized that he didn't want to merely exist. He wanted to live, to matter, to rise. He began saving every rupee he earned. While others, his age, spent money on snacks or second-hand phones, Ayaan spent his on second-hand books. He read under streetlights because his home didn't always have electricity. He studied engines by day and science by night. Knowledge became his addiction, and progress his only friend. People mocked him. "Why read books? You'll always be a mechanic," they'd say. But what they didn't understand was that Ayaan wasn't reading to impress the world. He was reading to unlock it. When he turned 17, he applied for a technical scholarship in a city hundreds of kilometers away. He walked 3 hours to the nearest internet cafe to fill out the form. When the results came, he didn't cry. He just stood silently with the acceptance letter in his hands and whispered, "This is just the beginning." City life wasn't easy. He lived in a shared hostel with peeling walls and cockroaches as roommates. He couldn't afford lunch most days and would survive on biscuits and water. But he never missed a class. He sat in the front row, asked questions, and took notes like his life depended on them. Because it did. One evening, while walking back from college, he passed by an auditorium where a seminar was being held on entrepreneurship. Curious, he slipped inside and listened. For the first time, he heard about people who built things from scratch, who created solutions, who started with nothing and built empires. That night, he didn't sleep. Instead, he made a list of problems in his town: lack of clean water, poor waste management, and no tech education. And then he made another list: ideas. For the next 2 years, he worked on one of those ideas: a low-cost water filtration system made from recyclable materials. His professors laughed at the concept initially. Investors didn't even let him finish his pitch. But he didn't stop. He failed 17 times. On the 18th attempt, it worked. His device could purify water at 1/10 the cost of commercial filters. When he took it back to his town, people gathered around him not with skepticism, but with awe. The boy who once cleaned grease off engines was now being invited to speak at universities. Awards followed. Media followed. But Ayaan remained the same. Grounded, hungry, focused. Years later, as he stood on a TEDx stage in a black suit, far from the torn shirts of his childhood, he looked into the audience and said, "Everyone talks about fuel for cars, fuel for rockets, fuel for machines, but no one talks about the fuel for the soul. Let me tell you what it is. Struggle, pain, rejection, loneliness, hunger. All of these, when embraced, become the fuel that takes you places no one ever imagined." The audience stood and applauded, but Ayaan didn't soak in the glory. He walked. Off stage, found a quiet corner, and messaged his mother, "I made it." So what's the moral of this story? Success doesn't come wrapped in luxury. It comes buried under failure, hidden inside sleepless nights, and disguised as hard work. The world will measure you by your degrees, your salary, your fame. But real success, the kind that leaves an impact, starts when you refuse to give up on yourself even when the world already has. You don't need a rich family, a fancy school, or a powerful surname. All you need is a reason. A reason to wake up when you want to sleep. A reason to study when everyone else is partying. A reason to believe, even when it hurts. Because once you find that reason, once you discover your fuel for the soul, there's no limit to how far you can go. Here's the description: 25 keywords and 25 tags for your YouTube video based on the story Fuel for the Soul, optimized to help make the video more searchable and potentially viral.